The year was 2497, and humanity had long since expanded beyond the confines of Earth's atmosphere, stretching its tendrils into the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The Sol system, now a bustling hub of interplanetary trade, science, and politics, was the beating heart of the Terran Confederation. Human civilization had conquered the void, colonizing planets and establishing strongholds on moons across the solar system. But even as humanity forged its future, it encountered worlds of extraordinary beauty and terrifying danger. By this time, Earth had already become a legendary name in the galaxy. Known for its rich biodiversity, unique history, and unpredictable nature, Earth was a planet that had witnessed humanity's evolution from a species on the brink of extinction to one capable of unimaginable achievements. But in the broader galactic community, the perception of humanity was mixed. Some alien species admired humans for their resourcefulness, creativity, and resilience, while others saw them as little more than primitive apes, just another weak, low-tier species that managed to claw its way into the stars. Humanity had long since evolved into a more sophisticated species, both technologically and socially. However, Earth had retained its reputation in the galaxy as a world of contradictions. Humans were still seen by many as an emotional, sometimes reckless species who relied too heavily on their sheer will to overcome the odds. This perception was partly due to Earth's varied history of wars, struggles, and scientific breakthroughs. In many corners of the galaxy, it was believed that the planet's inhabitants, despite their advancements, still clung to a primitive nature. Apex predators and the unforgiving galaxies. On the edge of the galaxy, beyond the reach of Terran civilization, lay the Vormic Expanse, a stretch of space notorious for its hostile environments and the savage creatures that roamed its worlds. The Expanse was a region where the fiercest and most deadly apex predators lived. These creatures were the stuff of galactic legend, beasts so powerful that even the most advanced alien species were wary of venturing into their domains. The Break were one such species, a race of towering, insectoid giants whose six-eyed faces were adorned with ridges of chitinous armor. Native to a jumbled planet in the Expanse, the Break had long been feared by the creatures that lived in their world. They were apex predators, stalking the dense, mist-filled jungles of their home planet with ease. With immense strength, an armored carapace that could withstand the fiercest blows, and sharp mandibles that could rip through steel, the Break were among the most terrifying creatures in the galaxy. The Break, however, were not alone in the Expanse. Other alien apex predators existed, each capable of causing mass devastation on their respective planets. There were the Zelgar, a race of massive amphibious creatures whose venomous bites could paralyze their prey within seconds. The Chirosian raptors, avian giants that stalked the skies of frozen planets, capable of creating tornado-like gusts with their wings. And then there were the Algok, monstrous quadrupeds that could tear through solid rock with their claws, renowned for their near-indestructible hide. In this unforgiving environment, only the most lethal survived. The arrival of Earth's weakest creature. On a remote moon orbiting a gas giant in the Vormic Expanse, a small, seemingly insignificant research outpost was quietly conducting routine examinations of the ecosystem surrounding the jungled planet. The scientists aboard the station were a mix of humans and allied species from across the galaxy, each tasked with cataloging the flora and fauna of the surrounding environment. None of them, however, could have predicted what was about to unfold. Among the research team was Dr. Ilara Graves, a relatively young and unassuming human xenobiologist. She wasn't particularly extraordinary by galactic standards. Earth's biology, while fascinating, was seen as crude compared to the highly evolved species that populated the galaxy. Ilara was a bit of an outlier in her field, unconventional, enthusiastic, and known for her deep curiosity rather than her strength or political influence. In fact, many of her colleagues viewed her as Earth's weakest creature. She was often passed over for more important missions or the chance to make a significant impact in the larger, more prominent galactic sciences. But Ilara had a gift and instinct for understanding the complex patterns that governed the behavior of living organisms. This gift had gone unnoticed by the wider galaxy. Many dismissed her observations as naive or overly simplistic. After all, humans were not known for their exceptional prowess in physical confrontation or their intellectual dominance when compared to the older, wiser civilizations of the galaxy. Elara's apparent lack of military training or natural superiority in scientific fields like genetics or xenobotany made her a curiosity, but not a force to be reckoned with. She was often seen as Earth's weakest representative in the galactic community, a fragile human out of place among more powerful species. Yet in the quiet depths of the Moon's research outpost, fate had a different plan. The encounter, Earth's weakest creature, and the break. It was on one fateful day that Elara stumbled upon something that would forever change the course of her life and the galaxy's perception of Earth. The research team had been exploring the dense jungles of the break's home planet, seeking to understand the intricate balance between predator and prey in the region. Elara had been assigned to the outskirts of the jungle with a small crew, tasked with cataloging plant samples and observing animal interactions from a distance. But something went wrong. The crew had unknowingly ventured too close to the territory of the break. The insectoid predators, with their highly developed senses, detected the intruders almost immediately. The ground trembled beneath the weight of the break as they emerged from the thick underbrush, 8-foot-tall creatures with armor-plated hides and legs as thick as tree trunks, designed to withstand any attack. Elara and her team were caught in the open. A break warrior, having spotted them, lunged forward with a speed that defied its bulky appearance. The researchers scrambled to defend themselves, but their weapons were ineffective against the break's hardened exoskeleton. The creature swiped its massive claws, sending a human researcher flying across the jungle floor. Panic set in. Elara, terrified, had no choice but to think fast. In the chaos, she noticed something that made her pause amidst the madness. A soft spot in the creature's armored chest, just below its mandibles. It was a vulnerable point, an opening in the break's otherwise impenetrable defenses. Despite her lack of combat training, despite being a self-professed weak human, Elara did what others would not dare. She trusted her instincts. Her years of studying the behaviors and weaknesses of alien species had taught her something others had overlooked. And in that moment, she seized the opportunity. Grabbing the nearest sharp object, a cutting tool used for analyzing plant life, she sprinted toward the break. In one swift, desperate movement, she plunged the tool into the creature's vulnerable chest, hitting the weak point with precision. The break let out a screech, a guttural sound that reverberated through the trees. It staggered back, unable to believe that a seemingly insignificant human had managed to breach its defenses. For a brief moment, it faltered, its massive form twitching as it struggled to comprehend what had just occurred. Elara's heart raced. The tool was lodged deep within the break, and though she was far from a seasoned fighter, her knowledge of biology and anatomy had given her the upper hand. With the break stunned, Elara's team was able to regroup and attack the creature together, eventually bringing it down. In the days that followed, the event reverberated across the galaxy. News of how a human, one of the weakest species in the galaxy, had single-handedly slain an apex predator sent shockwaves through both human and alien circles. Elara Graves, once dismissed as nothing more than a curious but insignificant figure, became an icon. Her bravery, combined with her instinctual knowledge of the break's physiology, had led to the fall of a creature long considered invincible. The Terran Confederation heralded her as a hero, and even many of the galaxy's most powerful species began to reconsider their views of humanity. The humans, once underestimated as simple creatures without remarkable traits, were now viewed as capable of feats that no one could have predicted. The story of Elara Graves, the weakest creature to kill an apex predator, would be told for generations, forever shifting the perception of Earth and its people in the eyes of the galaxy. Humanity had proved its strength not through overwhelming power, but through sheer ingenuity, resilience, and the surprising advantages that came from being underestimated. The dawn of new perceptions. When the break fell, it was not simply the end of an apex predator, it was the beginning of a new era for humanity in the galaxy. The galaxy's view of humans, and Earth's role within it, was irrevocably changed. No longer were humans dismissed as primitive or weak, mere creatures from a backwater planet among the stars. They had proved their worth, and in doing so, they had shattered the old assumptions that had plagued them for centuries. The news of the event spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the galaxy. Broadcasts from the Vormik expanse flooded the data streams, showing footage of Alara Graves small, unassuming, and incredibly human standing victorious over the fallen body of the Break Warrior. The juxtaposition of her delicate frame and the massive, bloodied beast lying before her was a powerful symbol. A human had done what no other species dared defeat an apex predator that had long ruled its jungle planet. This moment was not just a victory for Alara. It was a victory for all of humanity. For the first time in centuries, humans were seen as more than the sum of their weaknesses. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Terran Confederation's leadership, including the top counselors and the newly formed galactic diplomats, immediately recognized the significance of this event. As soon as the transmission reached Earth, the planet's leaders convened to determine how to best leverage this newfound position of respect. Admiral Veronica Shaw, a high-ranking officer in the Terran Navy and a seasoned diplomat, saw the implications immediately. The Terran Confederation, once relegated to the role of an economic and exploratory power in the galaxy, now had the credibility it needed to reshape the balance of power. "This is our chance," Admiral Shaw said in a council meeting, her voice filled with authority. "The galaxy has seen what humanity can do when we fight with purpose and intelligence. Now it's up to us to ensure this victory isn't wasted. We can rewrite our future. We need to be bold, not just reactive. Humanity will no longer be a side player in galactic politics. We have the attention of the entire galaxy. It's time to make sure they know that we won't back down." With Shaw's support, a new initiative was set in motion, the Humanity First Pact. This diplomatic strategy would ensure that humanity took an active, central role in the decisions affecting the galaxy's future. No longer would they sit on the sidelines while more powerful and ancient species called the shots. The victory over the Break was a clear signal: humanity had a place at the table, and that place was earned through ingenuity, determination, and the ability to overcome even the most insurmountable odds. Yet, the new wave of respect came with its own set of challenges. It wasn't just about the humans gaining recognition, it was about surviving the inevitable pushback from those who resented this sudden shift in power dynamics. Many alien species had long seen humanity as a relatively benign species, one that could be easily manipulated, ignored, or dismissed. But that perception was no longer accurate. Humanity was evolving, and not all species were prepared to accept that shift. As Alara's victory spread across the galaxy, it wasn't long before the Break retaliated. The Break had been humiliated, and their honor was a matter of paramount importance in their culture. To them, the loss was not just a defeat, it was a threat to their very place in the galaxy's food chain. The Break did not take such slights lightly, and they were determined to make an example of the humans who had dared to strike them down. The Break High Council, furious over the loss of one of their warriors, declared a retribution mission. They mobilized their fleets and dispatched squads of elite Break hunters, equipped with high-tech weaponry and bio-enhanced abilities, to Earth. Their goal was not just to kill humans, but to demonstrate the consequences of defying the Break. This was about sending a message to the galaxy and to humanity itself that the Break would not tolerate being seen as prey. Back on Earth, the sudden declaration of war sent shockwaves through every city. The Terran Confederation had grown in power and prestige, but the threat of a species as deadly as the Break was something no one could ignore. Humanity had achieved respect, but now they had to prove they could protect their newfound position. And for Alara Graves, it meant that her victory over the apex predator would come with a heavy price. Her life and the future of the human race were now in the hands of the Terran military and its allies. Despite her pivotal role in slaying the Break, Alara had never been one to seek fame or glory. She was a scientist at heart, a biologist, obsessed with understanding life in all its forms. The public attention that followed her actions weighed heavily on her, and she found herself thrust into a role she had never imagined. People now saw her as a symbol of humanity's potential, but to Alara, it was both a blessing and a curse. Her office was flooded with interview requests, political leaders asking for her to speak on humanity's place in the galaxy, and military commanders wanting her to consult on the strategies they would need to face the Break's vengeance. Elara, despite her newfound fame, longed for a life of quiet research, the very kind of life she had led before the incident. However, Elara's expertise was now invaluable. Her knowledge of alien biology and ecosystems had been instrumental in devising new strategies for the upcoming conflict. The Terran military, with the help of Elara and a team of top scientists, began to develop countermeasures against the Break's overwhelming strength. The military-focused research revealed that the Break's armor, while incredibly durable, had a few weaknesses that Elara had identified through her studies of their anatomy. These insights became the cornerstone of humanity's defense plans. Her expertise in field research had made her invaluable to humanity's efforts, but she was not prepared for the moral and emotional toll that this newfound responsibility would take on her. With the Break closing in, tensions across the galaxy mounted. The Terran Confederation worked tirelessly to prepare for the inevitable conflict, and alliances that had once been fractured began to solidify. The United Species Front, a coalition of various galactic powers, offered their support to the Terran Confederation, recognizing the broader implications of the Break's invasion. If the Break could be allowed to destroy humanity, what was to stop them from targeting other, weaker species in the galaxy? Meanwhile, Elara continued to grapple with the weight of her actions. Her victory over the Break had propelled humanity onto the galactic stage, but it had also made Earth a prime target for destruction. It was no longer just about surviving. It was about proving that humanity could endure, that they were a force capable of not just surviving but thriving in a galaxy full of dangers. Earth had become a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope for the underdogs of the universe. As the Break fleets entered Terran space, humanity prepared for the greatest challenge it had ever faced. A war was imminent, but this time, Earth was not fighting alone. The victory over the Break was humanity's first step in securing its place among the stars. Now, the real fight would begin not just for survival, but for the future of humanity and the galactic community as a whole. The Break warships, massive and ominous, drifted through the void toward Earth's outer colonies. The fleet was a terrifying sight, an armada of insectoid ships, each one designed to evoke dread with their jagged, chitinous exteriors and sharp, angular designs that mimicked the fearsome biology of their homeworld. These ships were more than just instruments of war, they were symbols of a species that believed in nothing but the supremacy of their kind. The Terran Confederation scrambled to prepare for the coming conflict. Military officers and strategists worked around the clock to develop defensive measures, while the leadership of the Confederation understood that this was more than a military campaign, it was a moment of reckoning. If humanity could stand its ground against the Break, the galaxy would know, without question, that Earth was a force to be reckoned with. Inside the Confederation's command center on Earth, Admiral Veronica Shaw oversaw the final stages of the defense preparation. The vast, subterranean war room hummed with activity as hundreds of officers monitored the incoming Break fleet. Shaw's demeanor was calm but unyielding, her sharp eyes scanning the tactical display before her. "We've confirmed the Break are within range of our outer defense lines," one of her officers reported, voice tense. "They're making no attempt to hide their approach. It's a full-scale assault." "Understood," Shaw replied, her voice low but filled with authority. "Initiate all defensive measures. And get Elara on the line now." In the quiet that followed, Shaw turned toward a communications officer who had been working with Elara Graves. The scientist, now a crucial part of the Confederation's strategy, had been invaluable in helping to develop new tactics and countermeasures based on the Break's weaknesses. Even though her victory over the Break was what had sparked the current crisis, Elara had become a key player in humanity's survival. She was not just a symbol anymore, she was a vital asset. Elara had been sequestered in a secure lab, running simulations and reviewing data with her team. When the call came, she dropped what she was doing and made her way to the war room. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her. She hadn't been prepared for this level of responsibility when she had first killed the Break warrior. In fact, she had thought her moment of glory would be a passing curiosity, nothing more than a blip in the galaxy's long history. Now, she was at the center of a galactic conflict. When Alara arrived at the command center, she could see the tension in the room. Officers, military strategists, and the higher-ups of the Confederation were all in deep discussion, tracking the Break fleet's movements. There was no panic, but there was an underlying current of anxiety. The Break were not just a military threat, they were a symbol of the galaxy's brutal hierarchy. Defeating them in battle was no small feat. Alara moved to a tactical console, where the latest data on the Break ships was being displayed. She looked over the statistics, the images of the Break warships, and the flight paths they were taking. "We've got to be smarter than them," Alara said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "The Break rely on brute force and overwhelming numbers. But we have something they don't: adaptability. If we can outmaneuver them and exploit their weaknesses, we might stand a chance." The officers around her exchanged looks. There was a sense of disbelief. Alara had killed the Break, yes, but could a single human really help change the course of an interstellar conflict? "Your victory over the Break was a fluke," one of the military commanders remarked, his tone skeptical. "We're talking about an entire fleet. A direct confrontation would be catastrophic." Alara's gaze was sharp. "It wasn't a fluke," she said, her voice firm. "I've studied their biology. I know how their ships are constructed, how their bodies work. I know where their weak spots are. If we're going to fight the Break, we have to think like them, we have to understand their limitations. I'm not saying we can match them in strength, but we can outthink them." Admiral Shaw, standing off to the side, nodded in agreement. "Alara's right. The Break have their weaknesses, and we've already identified some crucial ones. We're not going to defeat them through sheer force alone. This is going to be a battle of wits as much as it is one of strength. And we need to be precise." As the Break fleet reached the edges of the Terran defense perimeter, the initial barrage began. Massive plasma blasts and kinetic weapons fired from the Break ships toward the outer defenses of Earth's colonies. It was a display of terrifying power, one that would have shattered weaker civilizations. The first wave of Break warships began to push forward, and the humans responded with a flurry of activity. The Confederation's military, bolstered by their newfound technology and Alara's insights, launched a counteroffensive. Earth's fleet, though smaller in number, had been fortified with cutting-edge weaponry designed specifically to exploit the Break's vulnerabilities. The first skirmishes were brutal, and both sides suffered losses. The Break were relentless, pressing their advantage with overwhelming firepower. But the human ships had the upper hand in one key area: tactics. While the Break attacked with brute force, the Terran fleet used their superior maneuverability and precise strikes to target weak points in the Break vessels, specifically the gaps in their armor and the openings in their energy shields. Alara had instructed the military to target the joints and vulnerable undercarriages of Break ships, where their structure was less fortified. The human ships, agile and fast, darted around the Break's lumbering assault, firing pinpoint shots that sent Break warships exploding in plumes of fire and debris. For the first time, the Break seemed uncertain. They had never expected humanity to fight back with such precision, such calculated movements. The fight was no longer just a display of power, it was a battle of adaptability versus instinct. Just when it seemed humanity might hold the upper hand, the Break revealed their secret weapon, a biological weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A ship in the back of their fleet, one that had previously remained hidden, unleashed a horrific strain of viral spores that infected the Terran ships, disabling their systems and causing havoc across the Confederation's ranks. Ships began to falter, losing communication and weapon systems to the alien virus. Panic spread through the human lines. Alara's eyes widened as she watched the reports flood in. The Break had struck a blow unlike any other. They had used biological warfare, something far more insidious than firepower alone. The human fleet was in disarray, struggling to recover. The loss of control over their own systems had given the Break a window of opportunity to press their advantage. "We can't let them win like this," Alara muttered under her breath. The stakes had never been higher. As the break pressed forward, Earth's survival was at risk. But Alara refused to give in to fear. She knew there was a way to turn the tide. Drawing on her expertise in xenobiology, she worked feverishly with the Confederation's top scientists to develop a counteragent for the virus. It was a risky move. If they failed, it would mean the complete loss of the fleet. Alara and her team worked tirelessly to synthesize an antidote, using the very principles that had helped her defeat the Break Warrior earlier. Her understanding of alien biology and their weaknesses had made this moment possible. She was humanity's only chance. With the antidote synthesized, Alara's team initiated the distribution process across the fleet. Slowly, human ships began to regain control. The virus was neutralized, and the break's advantage began to wane. It was in that pivotal moment, when everything hung in the balance, that Alara's earlier victory became a defining catalyst. Human ingenuity, adaptability, and unity had turned the tide. The break's retreat and humanity's triumph. The break, realizing that their biological weapon had failed, began to retreat. Their forces, though vast, could not withstand the counteroffensive. The human fleet, revitalized and re-energized, pressed forward with renewed vigor. The break had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to fight back even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. In the aftermath of the battle, Earth stood victorious. The break were forced to retreat, and humanity had shown the galaxy that they were not to be trifled with. Alara Graves, once considered the weakest creature, had played a pivotal role in the survival of her species. And in doing so, she had proven that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their physical might, but in their ability to adapt, innovate, and fight for their survival. Her victory had changed everything. The break's retreat was swift, but it wasn't without its cost. The damage to Earth's outer colonies and the Terran fleet was significant, but the sheer impact of their victory reverberated far beyond the battlefield. Earth had proven that it was capable of surviving, adapting, and fighting back against even the most dangerous of galactic predators. The result? The universe had no choice but to reassess its view of humanity. Back on Earth, the mood was a mix of triumph and somber reflection. The victory was sweet, but the scars of war were visible. Thousands of lives had been lost, and entire colonies had been ravaged by the break's bioweapon. Earth had held its ground, but the cost of that victory weighed heavily on everyone. In the Terran Confederation's newly constructed Galactic Operations Command Center, Admiral Veronica Shaw and Alara Graves stood together, overseeing the recovery efforts. The council room was quieter than usual, the somber tone a stark contrast to the previous weeks of frantic military operations. Shaw spoke first, her voice carrying the weight of the recent victories. "We've sent word to the United Species front, our allies from across the galaxy. They're coming to help with the reconstruction. But this is just the beginning. Our role in the galaxy has changed forever. The break thought they could break us, but now the galaxy knows that Earth is no longer a fringe player. We're a power to be reckoned with." Alara nodded slowly, her thoughts elsewhere. Her mind, always racing, had not had a moment of peace since the battle. The victory had come at such a high price, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy would demand even more from humanity now that they had tasted the fruits of victory. "What about the break?" she asked. "Do you think they'll try again?" Shaw's gaze hardened, the scars of her own battles apparent in the lines of her face. "The break are vengeful. This isn't over. But they've been humiliated. Their leadership is in turmoil. It may take them years to recover. In the meantime, we need to focus on what's next." In the weeks following the break retreat, Earth began to see a flurry of diplomatic activity. The Confederation received ambassadors from a multitude of galactic species, some coming in peace, others seeking to explore the implications of humanity's newfound prominence. It was a heady time for Earth, but the leaders of the Terran Confederation were determined to use the moment wisely. One of the first major diplomatic moves was to invite representatives from the United Species front to a summit on Earth, a collection of some of the galaxy's most powerful species. The Front was a political and military alliance that represented many of the advanced species in the galaxy, including the Velcrum, a race of ancient, hyper-intelligent beings known for their cold, calculating nature, the Ithaki, a nomadic species with incredible psychic abilities, and the Aryans, a technologically advanced race of humanoids with a deep interest in strategic warfare. The summit, held in the capital city of New Vienna, was a historic event, humanity's first seat at the table among the galaxy's most powerful factions. It was a time to forge alliances, secure trade deals, and solidify Earth's place in the galactic order. But while the leaders of the Confederation prepared for the summit, Alara was called upon to attend as well. Her role had grown far beyond that of a scientist. She had become a diplomatic figure, a symbol of humanity's strength and resolve. Her presence at the summit was requested by several of the galactic ambassadors, eager to meet the woman who had single-handedly killed the break and helped turn the tide of the war. The summit took place in a grand hall, a towering structure built from sleek white metal and crystalline windows that overlooked the vast landscape of Earth. The air was thick with tension as delegates from every corner of the galaxy arrived, their ships filling the skies with an assortment of alien designs. The building was bustling with activity, and Earth's leaders, Admiral Shaw, the Confederation Council, and key military strategists stood at the ready. But Alara couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She was standing at the precipice of something far bigger than any victory she had ever achieved. Humanity's moment had arrived, but what would they do with it? What would she do with it? She walked through the halls of the summit, the metallic floors cold beneath her feet. The ambassadors had already gathered in the main chamber, and as Alara entered, all eyes turned toward her. The silence in the room was palpable. She wasn't just a scientist anymore. She was a symbol. A reminder that humanity was no longer a passive observer in the galaxy, it was an active participant. But with that role came expectations. Alara took her seat at the table, her mind racing with the implications of everything she had just witnessed. The galaxy was changing. Humanity was changing. But was it ready for the weight of this change? She wasn't so sure. This was the moment where her actions, those that had saved humanity, would no longer be enough. Earth's survival no longer depended on Alara's ingenuity alone. It was now about the future, humanity's ability to adapt, to align with the powerful factions of the galaxy, and to shape its own destiny. The summit began in earnest, with representatives from each species outlining their terms for cooperation. Some, like the Aryans, offered advanced technology in exchange for access to human resources and markets. The Ithaki were more cryptic, their psychic powers giving them an almost ethereal presence as they offered cryptic words about balance and destiny for humanity in the galaxy. The Velcrum were more straightforward, focused on trade and scientific exchanges, though Alara could sense the subtle distrust they held toward humanity. But it was not the diplomatic talks that caught Alara's attention, it was the presence of a new faction that made her uneasy. The Gorath, an ancient and ruthless species from the Outer Rim, had entered the summit with a loud, demanding presence. Their representatives were large, hulking, and covered in thick, armored exoskeletons, their language harsh and guttural. The Gorath had never been part of the United Species Front, but now they were eyeing Earth's newfound position with hungry eyes. Alara Graves, one of the Gorath representatives, spoke, his voice booming. "We know of your victory over the break. Impressive for such a weak species. But the galaxy does not give its power freely. We shall see if you can survive the test of time." Alara stood from her seat, the weight of the words hanging in the air like a sword ready to drop. "We're not afraid of the galaxy's challenges," she replied, her voice steady. "But we're not here to survive, we're here to thrive." The Gorath leader's eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of recognition in his gaze. It was the recognition of a species that had underestimated humanity and now, perhaps, began to see that humanity's place in the galaxy was not just earned through military might, but through resolve, intelligence, and an unyielding drive to overcome adversity. As the summit wore on, Earth's delegates struck several important deals, securing trade, alliances, and the promise of support from powerful factions across the galaxy. Yet, the conversation between the human leaders and the alien representatives wasn't just about military or economic agreements. It was about a future. The galaxy had never seen a species like humanity, and now they were forced to reckon with what that meant. When Alara stood before the council at the end of the summit, her thoughts were clear. This was only the beginning. Humanity had proven its worth, but now the real challenge began: maintaining that respect, forging lasting partnerships, and, above all, ensuring that they wouldn't be crushed under the weight of their own success. As the summit concluded and the delegates began to depart, Alara glanced out at Earth's skyline, an ever-expanding beacon of hope, resilience, and possibility in a galaxy full of uncertainty. Humanity had survived. But the true test was yet to come.